We talked about, I don't know if did we talk about the guy who was selling us a house that wasn't his? Did we talk about the fraud case? We did, right?
The dead guy.
The dead guy.
Oh,
yeah,
the dead guy. Yeah.
I was going to ask for an
Which
update.
one?
So, whatever. I told you guys a story about we were buying a house.
Life insurance.
Life insurance paid this person who's claiming to be the son. I couldn't prove that he was actually the legitimate heir the only
and he's
heir.
a felon, has fraud in the past.
I get a message last night from somebody who says, I know somebody that has that under contract. And I was like, well, it's a good thing I have a memorandum, filed on the contract because, it can't close. So they were like, oh, well, he's having no problem clearing title. And I was like, what title company? Because I went to two, and they're the best two title companies. I was like, that aren't shady. I was like, so unless he went and took it through someone who's going to underwrite it and do an illegal deed transfer, I don't know who's getting that house done. So he gives me the wholesaler who's bought it, currently has it under contract, gives me the guy's info, and I've never heard of him, which doesn't surprise me.
Shocking.
Yeah. He does have a local phone number, and I reached out to him. To no avail, he has not returned my phone call or text messages, but I told him I put him on notice that I have a memo on it and, all that. But, I had a feeling that the crook who was trying to sell me the house was just going to turn around and try to sell it to somebody else. His response to me was, well, I'm not going to sell the house. I'm going to keep it as a rental. And I just laughed because the house is in default. It's in foreclosure. He would have to go pay the arrears. And so it's just bullshit. Mm-hmm. But it's a small world when people think that they can get around us.
The best part is if they're going to a shady title company, we're probably not even going to hear about the memorandum.
Yeah, that's because they'll just delete it from the Word document. Yeah, which, again, I don't care. I feel bad for the end buyer who's buying it and actually on the hook because that's our title debacle that hopefully ends next month. So I think I'll dig into it a little bit more today and hopefully report back next week. But
the reason why, right? Because just to explain it, is that end buyer will eventually have trouble refinancing it of some sorts, right?
Or selling it.
Or selling it, or whatever. Whenever it goes through title again. That's my point.
And or the real heirs
show up.
Or real sellers show up and say, what are you doing in my house? Let's just say you renovated the entire townhouse, or house or whatever the hell it is, condo, whatever. You go and you buy it. So you paid real money for it. You invested time and money and, updating and all that stuff. Let's just say you put a tenant in there, or you go and you're retailing it and now you're selling it to Mr. and Mrs. Smith and they're so excited they're going to get their first home, whatever. Now all of a sudden these people pop up and say, hey, you don't have the right to own this, right?
So
now you have so many other problems.
With your title insurance, what would that cover?
If I was the buyer in that situation that was buying it from a wholesaler, and hopefully it was on an assignment and not a double close, my title insurance company would defend title that they underwrote and insured, giving me clear and equitable title, unless fraud was committed, in which case they would have to litigate the fraud, whether that was on the escrow officer's behalf, the attorney for the escrow officer, the seller. But mind you, that could happen, like in our situation, we're almost 2 years later, and litigation will take an infinite amount of time. And they're also not going to find a never-ending battle. And who are they going to get money back from?
That was kind of my whole point of this. That
they're going to go
question
back.
is
They're
your-
going to go back to the kid who lied about it being his dad's house.
So that's my point.
And
is
try to
you-
get
they're
money?
out the purchase price, they're out the rehab, they're out everything, the holding costs, and they're sitting there with their dick in their hand without any saving grace.
And I'm sure Teresa's going to hit me up later and yell at me for this. But the answer is just like other quote unquote insurance policies, they have max limits. So when you buy and you get a owner's title policy, it's usually for your purchase price.
And that's all it's going to cover. 'Cause that's the
That's your
cost.
max cost. The lender is usually insured for their loan amount, which is obviously usually
It's different.
it's different because it's usually, if it's a hard money loan, it's usually the purchase plus the renovation, right? So the loan amount is bigger. So, but yeah, I mean, it's only going to pay out what the term limits are, and not losses, and not legal fees, and not your interest, and not your your expenses, and not your
Taxes.
and not,
Anything.
they're not going. You will have to go litigate that,
Yeah.
right? So that's
That's going back to the battle of changing the word insurance, though. We're still working on that, TDI.
Yeah, we're still working on that. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting. Hopefully, I get to the bottom of that a little bit. I'm going to call the guy and see if I can figure it out, because I want,
Imagine he just, fuck it. That guy's, he didn't come up with anything. He just has a new wholesaler that he's trying to pawn it off to.
No, yeah, I mean,
Nothing's changed.
It's still the same fraud case. He didn't even have an
Whose
ID.
title?
I don't know. I'm trying. I'll find out.
Who's the one that we just
This happened
blacklisted?
last night at 10 p.m. So
And was it whom texted you? It's like
The
someone
new-
you knew.
The new buyer.
no,
Yeah, how did they get your info?
the new buyer did not text me.
Oh.
Someone that I know that knows that I was working on that messaged me, because it went out. He got it as he's trying to wholesale it, so he got it as a deal and was like, wait, I think I know this story, and hit me up. And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah, that's, so I'll dig into it and hopefully report back. But yeah, Nick made a good point. I mean, if they are using the right shady title company, we
wouldn't
get cut
get
out of it. Yeah.
You wouldn't even get a whisper.
Because I would have loved to have done that deal. I want to do that deal. There is no reason why I wouldn't buy that house.
We brought it to two different title companies. for fuck's
Aside,
sakes.
I reviewed it at great length with two attorneys. And I mean, there isn't much I can't do. Literally, there is almost nothing I cannot accomplish when it comes to clearing title.
I was about to say, burpees and jumping jacks are out the window, bro.
When it comes to work and clearing title, not exercise. So I was very, and I was very transparent with the seller person that I mean, this was a new one for me. This entire situation was a new one for me. And so I was trying everything I knew, and
They couldn't even do an affidavit of airship because the guy had felonies for fraud.
yeah. So whenever you have, they can't insure title on an affidavit of heirship, because if the person who's doing the affidavit, the sworn affidavit, and that's being filed, notarized, and everything, if they have a criminal background, the judge will not allow it in court. And so the insurance company is like, I can't insure this because you're a criminal.
Yeah.
So I can't just take your word that that what you're saying, right, at face value. I can't do that. So it's comical because I probably know the title. I probably know exactly who this person went to get it done. So I'll dig in. Like I said, I should have dug into it a little bit this morning, but yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, you get an update.